Tashidelek. So in the last session we finished until downfalls concerning tolerance, concerning patience or tolerance, right? So now we will move on to downfalls concerning diligence. So you might have noticed that while talking about these downfalls, we are moving from downfalls related to generosity, downfalls related to discipline, like this, to 6 paramitas. So this sort of part of the text is Jitsun Trabha says these talk about the downfalls connected with accumulating merit. So yeah. And these 6 paramitas actually are the means of accumulating merit for the Bodhisattva. And when you go against these 6 paramitas, you are going against the accumulation of merit. Anyway, so we'll start again with this the session with remembering bodhicitta for the sake of the liberation of all sentient beings, and especially for the longevity of Buddha Dharma, for the longevity of the teaching of bodhicitta, the vows of bodhicitta. We will study this text. Nikur duji kornam de lelo la so selmeji chakbe deme tamlatin these 3 lines. From the stanza 14th, the first 3 lines. Attracting followers out of desire for honor. This is not really honor, but anyway. Not so attracting followers out of desire for honor, he translates, but it's actually nyekur is nyepa is wealth, getting wealth. Kurva is respect, so when you translate honor, it only sounds like respect, but not the wealth, So anyway, attracting followers out of desire for honor, not dispelling laziness and the like, giving way with the passion of gossip. So these 3 goes against the practice of diligence. And hence they are downfalls. And of course, I'm sure among these downfalls, there are then also differences between, committing these transgressions with a strong affliction, or medium affliction, or very small afflictions, just like before. I'm sure this also applies here. And if you actually look at these things, all of the practices of Buddhist bodhicitta is just do not do anything that harms yourself and harm others. Just simple like that. Maybe that's why our teachers do not really stress so much on going through these details, because just by saying be kind, do not harm others and try to benefit others, just saying like this, then it's kind of enough. Everything is included in that, and because to be a monk or a nun, you have a lot of things that has to be specified, like cut your hair, wear your clothes like this, not like that, you know, not to climb a tree, you know, yeah, so like so many things that has to do with physical and verbal conduct that doesn't necessarily follows yeah, how to say, that has to be specified, you know. But with the bodhicitta, as you see here or in other texts or sutras, actually if you just tell the practitioners to not harm others and try to benefit others, when beings need your help, you must benefit the beings, you know. And if you cannot do it out of your, you know, sort of that you do not have the power to help and so on, then that is also not your fault, right? If you just say like that, then all this is actually included in those, you know. Maybe that's why they do not specify, but it's really good to know them one by one, you know. So then when we actually do these transgressions, then we know for sure that such and such has happened. Sorry. So the first line is, yes, wishing for wealth and respect, you attract disciples. So a bodhisattva who is sane, basically who is not crazy, who is sane and has a bodhisattva vow, thinking about wealth, when the bodhisattva attracts disciple, then when done with attachment and you know, craving for wealth and respect, then that becomes transgression, downfall with affliction. But if, you know, bodhisattva attracts a lot of disciple and they, you know, make a lot of offering, but then bodhisattva didn't do that necessarily for the offering, you know. But then offering comes, then the bodhisattva used those offerings, but bodhisattva didn't really sort of plan, you know, yeah, come to me and give me, like, for that reason, you know. Then that is something else, you know. He says that is something else. Then the next, they will also sell miches. Obviously, the obstacle to diligence is laziness. Then, when the bodhisattva, Jesus says, laziness is basically a state of mind that has distracted from practice, you know. So when bodhisattva likes being lazy, you know, resting, lying around and sleeping, well, I'm actually talking about myself. Yeah, this is what he says: sleeping excessively or just lying down, you know, even though it's not the time to do that. So the proper timing would be in the night time, you know, generally. But if you are a bodhisattva who works during night time to benefit others, then maybe during daytime. So in this way, you know, we have to know what is the proper timing. So generally, I think 6 to 7, yeah, maybe like 6 to 7, 8 hours sleep, that's enough, you know. And but yeah, and not knowing when to stop resting, when to stop sleeping, so just doing it. So in this way, when bodhisattva does these with attachment or affliction, that is downfall with affliction. But if bodhisattva is sick, or bodhisattva is tired of sort of traveling from far away, and bodhisattva wants to rest and sleep sort of until 11, 12 a.m. tomorrow, you know, that's then kind of okay, because that's a special occasion. Or bodhisattva, you know, thinks every day, today I'm not going to waste my time like this. Today I'm not going to sleep so much, or today I'm not going to be lazy, but this really wants that, but then again fall into laziness. So that is not downfall. That's just, you didn't succeed in practicing, but that is not this downfall. Then gossiping. Bodhisattva is extremely attached to gossiping, like talking about things. Then that is again a downfall. And he says, tukcha yolwar chenna nyomam bachingi nyabar jurus. Tukcha. Let me see what this guy translated tukcha as. Tukcha means actually 1/6. But what 1/6? What is the... Yeah, he says a 1/6 part of the day. So I checked what is tukcha, and it seems that there is a tradition in India of sort of separating a day and a night into 6 parts. So it could mean that then the gossiping time is I don't know, sort of how long is a day. So a day will be divided into 3 parts, and night will be divided into 3 parts. So one of those, that means 6 hours. So maybe that's not the type of tukcha. Then that is not the type of 1/6. So then what he said is one part of 1/6 of a day. So 1/6 of a day is then a day, let's say, just generally, especially in India, where sunrise and sunset timing do not really go up and down so much like Germany. So in Germany, a day could have sometimes the sun rises around 4:35 and it is still sort of daylight until 11, and sometimes sun rises around 8:30, almost 9, and the sun sets and becomes dark around 4:35, so it's very unstable. So then I would go to how the Indian, since this is Indian tradition. So then I suppose generally you can say a day has kind of like 12 to 14 hours, so then separating that into 6 parts. And if you find yourself gossiping and spending a time of that much time, tukcha yolwar chenas, so if it is 12 hours, so that would be 2 hours. Still, that's a lot of time. So you could still get away with just gossiping for half an hour. I don't know how this works. But anyway, so when you do it with a lot of attachment to gossiping and wanting to know secrets of others and so on, so that's bad. That's the downfall. But if you do it, like Shantideva says, gossiping and seeing dances or singing and dancing and so on, if you do it in order to benefit others, when someone is sick or someone is sad and to cheer them up, you do it, then that's different. So this is what he says, that if, of course, when somebody is asking you a question and then you're answering, and then that is going to benefit them, then that is a bit different. That is going to tame their mind or transform their mind for the better. Then anyway, so that these 3 are downfalls in relation to diligence. Actually, today I want to finish this text now. So then the next is meditation. 3. Then the last line of the 14th stanza: failure to seek the goal of concentration, not to eliminate hindrances in meditation, seeking good qualities in the taste of meditation. Yes, so these 3, I think. So, shut up, Tankawala. Knees. Thing is in Jitun Mitsuls, not seeking meditative concentration. So a bodhisattva who is sane, a bodhisattva who is sane should seek to meditate, should seek to gain the meditative concentrations, and should seek to finish the paramita of meditation. But but then even though the bodhisattva oneself do not know how to meditate and have a lot of doubts and so on, and then someone else has the instructions of meditation and is known to be a meditator, but out of jealousy, out of arrogance and pride and so on, bodhisattva do not go to receive teachings. Bodhisattva ignore this other teacher's teaching. Then that is downfall with affliction. But if the bodhisattva is too lazy to go, bodhisattva wants to go, it's not that bodhisattva do not want to go, but it's too lazy to go. That's downfall, but without affliction. But if bodhisattva is too sick to go, or if bodhisattva doubts the teacher, thinking, oh, the teaching may not be right, or if the bodhisattva already knows the teachings and the pith instructions, and bodhisattva knows how to meditate by oneself quite well, then that is no affliction. That is no downfall. Then something Dibapong Miches. So that one was bodhisattva is not even preparing to meditate. That's downfall. Then this one is now bodhisattva, even while meditating, do not abandon the obstacle of meditation itself, meaning Devidumba, desire, Nisim, harmful thoughts, Goba, the distracted mind, Joba, bodhisattva is too guilty of something, and that is also not good for meditation. You cannot meditate like that. Mukpa, bodhisattva is too sort of dull, or Ni, bodhisattva is very sleepy. Tatsum, bodhisattva is full of doubts about meditation, about object of meditation, what should one do, and you should then get rid of it. You should ask questions, but bodhisattva do not do that, and so when bodhisattva do not get rid of these out of affliction, so that's downfall with affliction, and if bodhisattva is not successful in getting rid of these, bodhisattva is trying every day to get rid of distractions and to get rid of doubts and so on, but it's not managing it, not being successful. That is okay, he says. That is not a downfall. And then the third downfall related to meditation is in regards to what happens after meditation. Something rola yang daktas, being attached to the taste of samadhis, that taste of meditation, meaning so this downfall only happens to those who have achieved samadhi, something because if you don't have the samadhi, then you do not have the bliss of samadhi, so then you cannot have this downfall. But if someone has been meditating samatha for years, let's say, and managed to reach the sorry, first samadhi, second samadhi, and so on. And then it is said that when you have samadhi, you have physical bliss. The body becomes as light as a feather. You can run and run and run for hours and hours, never get tired, because body is very light. Since body is so light, you do not depend on sort of normal food. You do not need such normal foods and drinks so anymore. Like that. And of course, then mentally too. You have so much bliss. There's no distraction. There is no visible feels like that you're not visibly attached to things, or especially you do not experience emotions like anger, anguish, and so on. It's like anyway, so it's supposed to be very blissful. And then when you get attached to that, even before that could happen, actually, a lot of bliss. But here he specifically mentions that this happens to only those who have samadhi, right? So that would be a downfall. But if Bodhisattva has samadhi and is attached to samadhi, but Bodhisattva do not want to be attached to samadhi, and it tries one's best to get rid of the attachment, but still fails and is attached to the samadhi and really enjoying it, sort of, but failing because you fail in doing that. That's okay, he says. Maybe not enjoying it, but so these are the three downfalls in relation to samadhi. Now, downfalls in relation to wisdom, prajna. And this Jesus Prabhupada divides into two. In relation to downfall, in relation to lower objects, downfall in relation to higher objects or noble objects. So the first has 4. Downfall in relation to lower objects. Wait. Nyegur deche kornam de lelo la so sel meche chabe demo tamla tin tingi jinji thome to samden diba pom meche samden ro la yonten ta. Okay. Nyente tekba pong war che rangsul yueshin thela chun min chirul tenchu chun bar che jang thela ga tekba chimbo pong war che thala te jing shen la me chuji tön du drum meche thela me jing yige ten I think I read too much. Okay. The third line of the 15th stanza, from the third line of the 15th stanza, rejecting the hearer's vehicle, application to it while having one's own method, application only to outside treatises, taking pleasure in that application, rejecting the greater vehicle, praising oneself and deprecating others, not to go for the sake of Dharma, deprecating him and referring to the letter, till the half of the 17th stanza, I think. But anyway. Yeah. Then, now. So the first one is abandoning teachings of the Stravakas. So a bodhisattva who is sane but says things like, one should never listen to others, especially if you're a teacher, to your followers or Dhamma brothers and sisters. You should never listen, or saying, I will never listen to teachings of Sravaka, Sravaka teachings. I will never read Sravaka sutras, We should never listen. We should never hold such teaching. We should never practice such teachings, Then, if you do that out of hatred towards them or out of arrogance for being Mahayana or whatever, then that becomes downfall. He says, Jesus says, for the benefit of sentient beings, a bodhisattva should even be diligent in learning the teachings of the Tirthikas. Then of course the Sravaka teachings are teachings of Buddha. Obviously bodhisattva should learn this. But if bodhisattvas say that, seeing, there is somebody who, a new bodhisattva, easily mind can get distracted, so then bodhisattva puts a boundary. Okay, you are not going to read a lot of different books. Right now, you only read Mahayana teachings and you only think about Mahayana teachings, authentic teachings. So then, Sravaka teachings, Bodhisattva sees that if this person is going to read Sravaka teachings, then he's going to get lost in that. There is a danger. Then Bodhisattva says, no, we don't. For that, in that particular instant, and Bodhisattva says this, that no, you should never read Sravaka teaching, you should never practice Sravaka teaching, but for the benefit of this person, just for now, so then that is different. And I think this is very important. Recently, Ishani was reading Akasha Garbha Sutra, and then she asked me this question. So there was this question about encouraging, that one should not encourage others to follow the Sravaka teaching. Not abandoning, but encouraging. One should not encourage others to follow Sravaka teaching. And then she said, what does that mean? And I thought, that is, so this is also kind of similar, So that is, when you see somebody who has the capacity to be a Mahayana practitioner, and who also already take a Mahayana Bodhisattva vow and so on now. But there is a danger that if they read other teachings like non-Buddhist or even Buddhist like Sravaka teachings and so on, they're going to get lost in that, and then they're not going to be a good, useful Bodhisattva. Then in that regard, one should not encourage them to follow that. One should maybe even discourage them, like that. Not maybe, one should. So similarly here too. So sometimes when some people come say, I want to learn Buddha Dharma, and then that's good. Then if they listen to me, then I try to control a little bit in the beginning what kind of books they're reading and what kind of teachings they're receiving, because you see that if you enter the Dharma with proper information, proper teaching, proper reading proper books, then your foundation will be strong, and also I see that sometimes people just read some books or receive some teaching, and then it automatically their mind has changed a little bit, and so to stop that, I try, from at the least in the beginning. After you become strong, like he will also say later, after you become strong, then you should read and anything and everything. That's no problem. Then, Rangsul Yoshin tell us the second one. meaning even though one has one's own path, one then try to be diligent on some other path or teaching. Yes. Application to it while having one's own method. Yes. All right. Rangchul yuesh intelligent. Shepate a bodhisattva who is sane has, even though bodhisattva has all the teachings or pitakas, Vinaya Bodhisattva, Abhidharma Bodhisattva, Sutra, all these teachings are there, and Bodhisattva let go of these and then diligently practice the Shravaka Vinaya, diligently practice the Shravaka Sutra and Abhidharma. So that, when done with afflictions, out of ignorance or out of whatever afflictions, then that is a downfall. But if Bodhisattva does that, diligently practicing the Sravaka path in order to bring the Sravakas to the Mahayana path skillfully, then Bodhisattva is doing that. That is different. Then the next is Chunmin Chirul Tenchu Tsom's application only to outside treatises. That is. Yeah, that is good. That is good translation actually. Yeah, that's Chunmin Chirul Tenchu Tsom's. Similarly, Bodhisattva who is sane and has, knows that actually there is a lot of Mahayana teaching and Buddhist teachings for that matter. There is a lot of teachings of Buddha, but then Bodhisattva ignores all that. Because Bodhisattva ignores all that, and then one pointedly studies and try to practice teachings of non-Buddhist schools or Tirthikas and any non-Buddhist schools, religions. So that, when done with because you really like it, you're too attached to it and so on, then that is downfall and affliction. This now could happen to those who mix religions like this. I'm saying it could happen. I do not know for sure. Those who sort of say like, yes, I am sort of part Christian, part Buddhist, or part like Hindu, part Buddhist, or like that, So half and half. That could happen to those. Then, but he says, if by studying this non-Buddhist text, it's going to make you cleverer, smarter, so that you can learn Buddhist text better, practice Buddhist text better, and it makes your understanding of Buddhist teachings better, then that is different. That you read, you diligently read the teachings of these non-Buddhist schools, and you are allowed to nime sumcharre. You are allowed to when you divide the day into 3 parts, and then for 1/3 of that part you can spend studying the non-Buddhist schools. I think the previous one, when anyway, then the next, the 4th downfall, a bodhisattva who is sane, I lost it again, taking pleasure in that application. A bodhisattva who is sane and have studied before or now is studying Tirthika teachings, Tirthikas, or non-Buddhist for that matter, not just Tirthika, any teaching that doesn't come from Buddha. Bodhisattva becomes very learned in that, let's say. But Bodhisattva should not have devotion to that, not to think that this is the unmistaken path. Mainly Bodhisattva study those so that Bodhisattva actually can know better why a teaching that do not goes along with Four Noble Truths or the Four Seals, for example, is mistaken, to understand that better or to benefit others, maybe the Bodhisattva has to teach these to those others who are in that tradition and so on. For example, His Holiness Dalai Lama, sometimes some Christians, recently I was listening to his teaching on the Rice Seedling Sutra, where he said that once a bunch of he was talking with some Christian priest, and one of the priests asked him what to do when I have a strong ego and strong sense of me and mine, and what do I do? And His Holiness said, well, we talk about emptiness and so on, but that will not apply to you since you are Christian. So then it's better to think in this way, that all this world, all of the beings, everything is created by God, and God has a divine plan. And in that divine plan, in this vast creation, I am just a small sort of particle of dust. I'm just a small part of it. So His Holiness says, then maybe thinking like that, maybe your ego will sort of go down. Sort of your pride or your arrogance and so on will go down. So you see, then what he is doing is that he is helping this being who wants to follow this tradition to in that way. That to do this, then it's okay, he says. But if you like it and take it as your own path, think of it as your own path, then that is not good. Penna. So if you get attached to it and take it as your path, then that becomes downfall with afflictions. I should talk faster now. But if it is purely for the benefit of others, then that's okay, that's different. So these were downfalls in relation to ordinary objects or lower objects. Now downfall in relation to noble objects, which I'm guessing the triple gem and so on. Abandoning Mahayana. So when a sane bodhisattva who studies the Bodhisattva Pitakas, Bodhisattva baskets, the teachings, and there he or she reads the teaching of reality of phenomena, like emptiness, and it just cannot understand it. Or he or she reads the vast activity of Bodhisattva, where it is said that the three sort of 1,000 world system can fit into an atom, so these cannot Bodhisattva do not understand these teachings and do not like these teachings, and then they criticize these aspects of Mahayana teaching and also criticize others who believe these teachings or teach these teachings, or criticize others who sort of claim to have such capacity, like a great Bodhisattva, Samantabhadra, for example, so that will be then a downfall when done with the affliction. Now, in the one of the root downfall is again abandoning Mahayana teaching. It says abandoning Mahayana teaching and teaching something that is not Mahayana, that is the root downfall, right? So then here, why is it not the same? So he says, previously you abandon entire Mahayana teaching, that becomes root downfall. Here, and you have to teach something as Mahayana that is not Mahayana to become a root downfall. Here, you abandon a part of the Mahayana teaching, but not the entire Mahayana teaching itself. There are many other parts that you like and you believe in. So, so he says, when you come across such Mahayana teachings, if you do not have devotion to it, that's okay. Not having devotion to something, that's okay. Or if you do not like it or believe it, that's okay. But do not then criticize it. Do not go to the other extreme, and maybe try to train and think like this, that the Buddha has the eye of Dharma. Buddha knows the Dharma, inside out. I am like a blind person who hasn't understood that. So contemplating like this, you generate devotion. Then it's okay, he says. Yes, but even if you do not like this teaching, even if however you try, you do not generate devotion, but you just do not criticize it, mentally or verbally, you do not criticize it, then that's no problem. Then yes, then praising oneself and criticizing others. When a saint Bodhisattva who has sangsing the chasing control simji thala tujin shalamena nyamamuchin, who out of anger praise oneself and criticize others, then that becomes a downfall. So here he says a wealthy Bodhisattva, I think to show that the Bodhisattva is not criticizing others and praising oneself, is not doing it for wealth though, just out of anger. So again, in the root, one of the root downfall was praising oneself and criticizing others, right? So then why is it not similar? Is that here, the root downfall was with strong attachment to wealth and trying to get wealth and respect and so on, you then criticize others heavily and praise oneself. Here you just you just do it out of anger, it's not that you'd have any intention of getting something in return, but yeah, so when you do that, then that is downfall. But when you criticize others and praise oneself, because you see that is the only way of taming a tirthika, who has harmful thoughts to Dharma, or see that this is the only way of taming the students, taming others, or this is this by doing this, then the beings is going to generate devotion, because just like sometimes when Buddha says, I am a completely enlightened being, so that the other person know what Buddha is, and so that the other person, Buddha sees that saying this will generate devotion in this person. So similarly, many times masters, they say, I have done this, I have done that, I have practiced like this, and I had such and such hardships, not to praise oneself, but so that the followers will have devotion, that is different. He says that is very different. Yeah. Then is downfall against generating prajna, generating wisdom. First, not going for the sake of dharma, not going to receive dharma, basically. A saint bodhisattva who knows that someone else is teaching dharma, but out of arrogance and out of harmful thoughts, anger or whatever, afflictions, they do not go to receive the teaching, then that that becomes a downfall out of affliction. But the bodhisattva wants to go, but is too lazy to go. That's downfall, but downfall without afflictions. There's no harmful thought. But if bodhisattva do not know that someone is teaching, or bodhisattva is too sick, or bodhisattva do not know the teacher, and or may have doubt, maybe this person will not teach properly, then that's kind of okay. Or if bodhisattva wants to go, but then it's going to disturb the mind of bodhisattva's teacher. Maybe the teacher said, do not go to receive teachings from this person, and then even the bodhisattva wants to go, but then do not go, to not disturb the mind of the teacher, then that's okay, he says. Or if bodhisattva already knows the teaching, then that's okay. Or if bodhisattva knows more teaching than this teacher, that's okay. Or if bodhisattva is too busy practicing meditation, that's okay. Or if bodhisattva is very stupid, so stupid that bodhisattva knows, even if I go to the teaching, I'm not going to understand this one, so that's kind of okay. Then the second one is telamijing yigitens. Deprecating the teacher, deprecating him and referring to the letter. Okay, he made it a male individual. A saint bodhisattva sees a dharma teacher and knows that this is a dharma teacher, but especially one's own dharma teacher, and then the teacher comes, ignores the teacher, looks down on the teacher, do not make any offering. Actually, a bodhisattva he doesn't say one's own teacher, he says any teacher. A bodhisattva knows that the person is a dharma teacher, and knowing the person is dharma teacher, when the person comes to one's place, do not make any offering, do not offer food and drinks and so on, And not only that, bodhisattva criticizes this person and has deep mistrust in this person, and even have no respect while talking, no respect with physical conduct. And then even when the teacher is teaching the dharma to the bodhisattva is always busy in listening about the fault. This person, is he using the words not properly? Is the sentence mistaken? Is it really like that as he's saying like that? So too busy doing that. So that's not good. Basically, not having respect to the dharma. Sorry. So it does look like he's talking about he's talking about one's own teacher, that one's received teachings from, but is too arrogant, So these are the 8 downfalls in relation to prajna, wisdom. All in all, we talked about 64 downfalls now. Now these next downfalls are downfalls. So these are then downfalls that go against accumulating merit. These downfalls in relation to the 6 paramitas, right? Now, Jesus Tapajan says downfall in relation to downfalls that go against benefiting sentient beings is there's so many outlines. I'm not going to go through these. It's just going to distract you guys. Let's go to the root text. Go be talk to damages. Go be talk to damages. Go be talk to damages. Nepe rimto chawapong dungal silver mije ba pamen namla rig mitun chamla lendo pemedo shengi nyangin sang mije nordo bala jin mije kornam chini ten mije shenju ledong tun miju yenden ngakpa ma mije kundu chambar char miju zutul digla sok mije. Yeah, I read it. I read it then. Not being a friend in need, refusing. It's the third line of the 17th stanza. Not being a friend in need, refusing to serve the sick, not acting to remove suffering, not teaching what is relevant to the careless, not repaying a good turn, not assuaging the sorrow of others, not giving to those who seek wealth, not working for the welfare of followers, not conforming to the expectations of others, not speaking in praise of good qualities, not suppressing in accord with condition, not using psychic powers to threaten, and so forth. Then, yeah. So the first one is basically, as he says, not being a friend in need. Well, you don't have to be friends, but anyway, not being there for sentient beings when you are needed. So when someone says like, oh, I want to practice such and such, but I need a friend, and you can be the friend, but you do not do it. And if you don't do that out of affliction, then that becomes a downfall. And especially when two friends and Dharma practitioners fight and they separate, or maybe a sangha part and separate, and you do not say anything, even though you have the capacity to bring them together, you do not try, that. Not being a friend in need, as he translates. So if you do that out of affliction, like anger and whatever, then pride, arrogance, that's downfall with afflictions. But if you just, again, if you want, you want to do that, you want to bring them together, you want to help this person practice and so on, but you're too lazy, that's affliction, that's downfall without afflictions. But if you cannot do those things because you're too sick, or if you cannot do those things because there are others who are without friends and without any direction, and you need to help them first, so then that's okay. Or if this person is actually going to do something that's against the Dharma, then you do not help this person, that's okay. Or you see that this is how this person is going to be tamed, then that's okay. Or if you have already accepted to help someone else previously, that's okay. Or if you do not help this person, but you tell someone else, can you please help this person, that's okay. Or if you're too busy practicing, that's okay. Or if this, these for example, when these two people separate, Dhamma friends, brother, sister, whatever, they fight and separate, and you see that even though you say something, it's not going to help, and it's just going to, they're too stupid, they're too blind, and that's what to do. Or if the person who asked you for help is too stupid, then that's okay. You do not help this person because you know that it's not going to work, even though whatever you say. So like this. Of course, if it goes against the rules of the Sangha and so on, then that's separate. The next is not serving the sick, should be like that. Refusing to serve the sick. A saint Bodhisattva meets with somebody who is sick, who has sickness, who is ill, and the Bodhisattva just keeps seated. So basically, when a sick person comes, Bodhisattva gets up and try to help this person, sit down or so on, and maybe this person needs something to eat or drink. The Bodhisattva try to serve this person, and when Bodhisattva do not do that, sorry, out of aggression and so on, then that is a downfall with affliction. But if the Bodhisattva is too lazy, Bodhisattva wants to do it but is too lazy, cannot do it, then that's downfall but without affliction. But if Bodhisattva oneself is too sick, or Bodhisattva asks someone else to do it, or if this sick person already has helpers, or if the sick person is not that sick, one can do it. This sick person can help oneself, if that sick person is barely alive, then you cannot do much, or Bodhisattva is too busy doing more important things, helping more beings and so on, then and working for this one sick person is going to sort of basically destroy all that, then that is different. So here Trungpa says, well, actually this downfall and the previous downfall, not being a friend in need, what is the difference? Trungpa says, well, the previous one is more general, it's basically saying when beings are in need, Bodhisattva should help. But this one is to show that although Bodhisattva should help all beings, but Bodhisattva should be more helpful to those who are sick. So to point that out, then this is taken out, he says. Then then this is not act. Not acting to remove suffering. Dungal silver mijepas. When beings are in suffering and Bodhisattva can help but doesn't help out of affliction, then that is a downfall with affliction. If Bodhisattva is again too busy, or Bodhisattva, it's too late. Sorry, if Bodhisattva is too lazy, then that is downfall without affliction. Or if Bodhisattva oneself is sick and the other person already has helper and so on. So this is similar to the previous one when yeah, so these are no afflictions. In the previous one we discussed these, right? When someone else already has helper and so on, or Bodhisattva asks someone else to help, then that's okay. Mm-hmm. Sorry, here Jesus Prabhupada says, I mixed these lines up. So here Jesus Prabhupada says, then previously you said basically not helping sick person, and here not helping sick person is a downfall. Then the next is not helping those who are in suffering. It's a downfall. So then he says, what is the difference? Then he says the difference is that, of course, the Bodhisattva should help all who are suffering, but out of those, Bodhisattva should definitely help those who are sick, like physically sick. Then to point that out, then that was taken outside. Sorry about the mix-up. Then the next is Paminamla Rigmitun. Paminamla Rigmitun meaning not teaching what is relevant to the careless. So a saint Bodhisattva sees that clearly that someone is going to do something that's going to destroy this life or the next life or the Dharma practice. And you should say something. You should show this person a path, proper path. Stop this person. But out of aggression, out of wickedness, Bodhisattva lets this person do whatever wrong thing this person is doing. Then that is, not showing the proper path. Out of affliction is then downfall with affliction. But Bodhisattva cares, but too lazy, then that is downfall without affliction. But Bodhisattva sees someone is doing wrong, but don't know what to do. Oneself don't know what to say, don't know how to stop it. That is different. He says that is with no affliction, no downfall. But or if Bodhisattva tells someone else, can you please help this person, show this person, that's okay. Or Bodhisattva sees that this person is going to see one's own mistake, so doesn't say anything, that's okay. Or Bodhisattva sees that this person has a good teacher, who's going to teach this person, that's okay. Or if Bodhisattva sees that this is the only way, that let this person make mistakes, and let the person suffer, then only this person will learn. Or Bodhisattva sees that speaking to this person is going to make this person more angry and more sort of diligent in doing the wrong things, then that's okay. Bodhisattva doesn't say anything. Or Bodhisattva sees that this person really likes doing bad things and has no respect to Dharma, no respect to the Bodhisattva, really is like a barbarian, then Bodhisattva sees that that's useless, then Bodhisattva doesn't say anything, that's okay. Sorry. Chamla lendu peme dos. The next is Chamla lendu peme dos. Not repaying good turn. Basically, actually, the Tibetan text is saying Chamla lendu peme do, not repaying kindness in return. So, when someone who has helped the Bodhisattva, who has been kind to the Bodhisattva, and the Bodhisattva do not remember the kindness and do not repay the kindness out of aggression and so on, then that is a downfall with affliction. But the Bodhisattva is too lazy. Bodhisattva wants to, repay the kindness, but too distracted with other wrong things or is too lazy. That's downfall, but without affliction. Oh, yeah. Now I understand why they say without affliction, because this affliction, it is bad, it is negative karma, but not related to this downfall, because here Bodhisattva wants to do it, right, but is too lazy or too distracted with other wrong things. But if Bodhisattva try to repay the kindness but fail, that is okay, he says. Or if Bodhisattva sees that is the only way of taming this person, then that's okay. Then Shenji Nangil Salmijes, the next is not removing, what is it? Not assuaging the sorrow of others. All right, I don't know what assuaging is, but here Shenji Nangil Salmijes meaning not removing the sadness of others. A bodhisattva who is sane sees that someone who has lost one's family or someone who has lost one's wealth and is extremely sad. Bodhisattva do not try to reassure them, try to encourage them, give them some strength out of aggression and so on. Then that is, so deliberately not doing it. Yes, deliberately not doing it. Then that is downfall with afflictions. But if Bodhisattva was too lazy, that is affliction without downfall. Then no affliction is similar to the previous one, as when we were talking about the sick person. Like maybe the sick person has already helpers and so on, then no need, or Bodhisattva do not know what to do, then also it's okay. Then the next is Nordebola Jinmiches, not giving wealth to those who want. Where is it? Not giving to those who seek wealth. That's good. So, a sane Bodhisattva has food and drinks and wealth that someone else wants. But do not give it to this person out of anger and strong attachment and so on deliberately. That is a downfall with affliction. You see, that's why I said from the start that these are coming from the Chittamatra tradition, because you see, Shantideva will never say that. Madhyamika will never say that. Madhyamika will say, yes, you should give everything to sentient beings, but if you cannot give, if you cannot let go of this, then that's kind of not your fault, because you're not there yet. So but if you're too lazy, you want to give but you're too lazy, then that's downfall without affliction. But if you are poor, you yourself don't have what this person wants, then there's no downfall. Or if it is a mistake, if it is a how to say, improper thing that they are wanting, like maybe a monk wants to drink alcohol, and then the Bodhisattva has alcohol but do not give it, that's okay. Or if somebody is diabetic, basically if someone has sickness and they want to have food that they're really craving for, a food that actually is going to make their sickness worse, and Bodhisattva do not give, then that's okay. Bodhisattva, if that is something that's going to tame them, that's okay. But if by giving it, Bodhisattva is going to anger the king of the king land, and that's going to bring a lot of harm on, maybe Bodhisattva has Sangha in monasteries and whatever family, that's going to be destroyed, then out of this fear Bodhisattva cannot give, that's okay, he says. Or if this is this rule of the Sangha, then that's also okay. You see, Shantideva will say, even if it's the rule of the Sangha, if the person needs, then you should give. Shantideva says, during the time of generosity, sometimes you have to ignore the discipline, like that. But Chittamatra tradition more stricter, So the next is not working for the welfare of the followers. So a saint Bodhisattva who attracts a lot of followers. So many people come to receive teachings from you. They become your follower. But out of miserliness or maybe even aggression and so on, do not give what these people need, like dharma or wealth, food and drinks and place to stay and so on. Then that becomes downfall with affliction. But if it is out of laziness, then there is downfall without affliction. But and then it is similar. If Bodhisattva sees that is how they are going to be tamed, then that's different. That's no affliction. Or if it is the discipline of the Sangha, then that's different. Or if Bodhisattva is too sick oneself and cannot do those things, that's different. Or if Bodhisattva asks someone else to please do this, then that's different, like that. Or if the followers have more wealth than you, then that's okay. If the followers are more learned than yourself, and can get all the necessary things like dharma robes and so on by oneself, then that's okay. If the Bodhisattva has already given all the teachings, then not teaching is okay. If Bodhisattva has do not have any wealth, then not giving wealth is okay. If Bodhisattva sees that person is not really a follower, it's a non-Buddhist person, well, it is someone who came here acting like a follower but to really harm the dharma, then that's ignoring that person, then it's okay. Shenjiloda Tunmijuk. Then the next is Shenjiloda Tunmijuk. Not conforming to the expectation of others. Now this is kind of important, and I think will be very difficult for so-called modern man, modern human. Where is it? A Bodhisattva who is sane out of aggression, out of affliction, deliberately do not fulfill the expectations of others. When you can and you do not do those, then that is what is it? A downfall with affliction. See, now you say this to people nowadays, they will say, "What? No, you should live your life. Stop trying to." But what is it? Stop trying to please others. So that's then this path is not for you. You are on a different path. But again, the same. If Bodhisattva then, so Bodhisattva does this out of anger and aggression and I don't care about what others say. I will I want to do this. So out of attachment, then that is a downfall. But if that is a downfall with affliction. But if Bodhisattva wants to rectify one's behavior but is too lazy, then there's downfall without affliction. But if Bodhisattva is too sick, and if this is the rule of the Sangha, or if this is how by doing this, by not conforming to some people, you're going to benefit many beings, then that's different. Or this is how you defeat harmful person, person who wants to harm Dharma, then that's different. Then the next is not praising those who, where is it? Not speaking in praise of good qualities. Yeah, basically, the Tibetan, this is not praising the qualities of others. So, a Bodhisattva who is sane, sees the qualities of others, but out of jealousy and basically aggression, affliction, do not want to praise this person, so do not praise this person. Then that becomes a downfall with affliction. But again, if it's too lazy or Bodhisattva forgets, then that's a downfall without affliction. But if Bodhisattva sees that this person is someone who doesn't want to be praised, who's very sort of, you praise this person and this, really sort of retracts, then that's okay, That's a very sort of detached from object of desire and so on, someone who is like that, then that's Bodhisattva, just keep quiet, then that's okay. Where is it now? I lost it. If the Bodhisattva is too sick to do that, that's okay. If Bodhisattva sees that not praising this person, that's how I'm going to tame this person, my student, or tame this person himself or herself, then that's okay. But if or if this is the law established by the Sangha, then that's okay. For the benefit of this Sangha and beings, then that's okay. If Bodhisattva sees that this person has quality, but if I praise the qualities, this person is going to be too proud, then that's okay that you do not praise. Or if Bodhisattva sees that those qualities are not really good, they're fabricated, they're like just a show, then that's okay not to praise. Or if Bodhisattva doubts, even though Bodhisattva do not know that it's not a real qualities, but if Bodhisattva have such doubts and do not praise, that's okay. Or if a Bodhisattva sees that that not praising this person, maybe this person is a non-Buddhist, so opponent of Buddha Dharma, but this person have qualities, but Bodhisattva then do not praise this person because right now it's a time to debate, then that's okay. Or if Bodhisattva is waiting for this person to, or someone else to finish their talk, then the Bodhisattva is going to praise this person, that's okay. Or maybe Bodhisattva sees that right now is not the time to praise this person, then that's okay. Then, now, not giving punishment part, that part. Kendo tsamba tsarmichus, not suppressing in accord with conditions. A Bodhisattva who is sane sees that a sentient being is doing a mistake, especially when a follower, Dharma brother and sister, is doing something very wrong. And Bodhisattva actually has the power to punish this person so that this person will realize one's mistake and go back to the right path. So there are three types of punishment. First is verbally saying harsh words, like, oh, have you no shame, and whatever, you are destroyer of dharma, like that, and if that is going to help, by the way. Or making punishment, like or you are banished from the not banishment, sorry, giving punishment, like you have to clean the temple for 1 month, and you have to cook for 1 month, like that, sort of giving a punishment to somebody to bring them on the right path. Or you banishing somebody, saying, or you are banished from the temple for a year or for 5 years, I don't want to see your face, like that. But because Bodhisattva says that's the only way, then that's okay. Sorry, not that that's okay, but these are the things that one should do. But Bodhisattva do not do any of these things when someone does mistakes, out of wanting to see this person suffer, or out of, what is it, to keep a good face, to look nice or whatever. So these are all afflictions. Then these are downfall with afflictions. But if Bodhisattva is too lazy to do that, then that's different. That's downfall, but without affliction, because you're not doing it on purpose. But if Bodhisattva sees that, okay, this person is making mistake, but if I try to rectify, it's not going to help. This person is going to get more angry. Then I'm not going to do anything now. Then that's okay. Or Bodhisattva thinks, I will punish this person, but not now. Then that's okay. I think during rain retreat, it's like that. During rain retreat for 1.5 months, I think no monk or a nun should be punished, if I remember correctly, even though you do mistakes. So the Sangha will wait until the rain retreat is done, so 1.5 months or 3 months in India, some tradition, I think. So like that, if you wait for the punishment, then that's different. Or if you see that, I should punish this person, but if I punish this person, maybe this person has a lot of friends, and then there's going to be a big division. Maybe this person has a lot of followers, and then the Sangha is going to part into two. Then that's not good. So then you do not punish this person right away. Then that's okay. Or when you see that someone is doing mistakes, but then you also know that this person is a kind person, good person, and one he or she will see their mistakes soon, so let me not embarrass this person right now, so that's okay. Then the next one is Zutul Digla Sogmejes, not using psychic powers to threaten and so forth. Yes. A Bodhisattva who is sane and has miraculous powers sees that a Tirthika, Tirthika who also likes the teachings of Buddha Dharma, like a non-Buddhist who also likes the teachings of Buddha Dharma, but just speaking to this person is not going to help. He wants to see, magic, sort of miracles, So then Bodhisattva should sort of, not that he just wants to, but Bodhisattva sees that this person, the only way of taming this person is by displaying such things. And Bodhisattva, when do not do that out of anger and aggression and so on, then that is a downfall. Or when someone who has entered the Buddha Dharma, but who has destroyed one's shila, one's discipline, who is maybe like not a proper monk or a nun anymore, but still acts like a monk or a nun and keep getting offering from devotees, then seeing that, oh, that is not good, he or she himself, herself will suffer, and the devotees offering is also wasted like this. Devotees want to offer it to ordained sangha, and then you're not really now an ordained sangha anymore, honestly. So then, to scare this person, Bodhisattva sees that the only way now, speaking will not help this person. Maybe this person is very learned also, so more learned than you. So then showing sort of miracles and so on. And Bodhisattva sees that if I show miracles, then this person will rectify one's mistake, and so the offering made with devotion will not go to waste. Then Bodhisattva should show miraculous powers, but Bodhisattva, if do not do it out of jealousy and anger and so on, then that becomes downfall with afflictions. Now, when Bodhisattva sees that this non-Buddhist who likes Buddha Dharma or there may be a chance that this non-Buddhist become a follower of Buddha, but if I show miracles, this person will not think that this is a real sort of miracle coming out of the meditation of the Bodhisattva. This person will maybe say, that's just like a trick, like a magic trick, that you just, illusion. This person is going to say that. Then it's okay. Bodhisattva then do not have to do these things. That's not yeah. So these are the 46 downfalls. So now we have 4 root downfalls and 46 downfalls. All in all, we have 50 50 downfalls, 50 transgressions that Bodhisattva should avoid. 51 if we add letting go of aspiration bodhicitta. So then the next 2 Ningjer denching chamchir dan semge wala nyepa mes. There is no fault in a wholesome thought, either compassionate and acting out of love. Now, to show that even though you do one of these 50, but if you do it out of compassion, out of kindness, then these are not really downfalls, even though they may look like downfalls. They're not downfalls. These are not negative karma. So in this way, Jesus Prabhupada says that you have to understand that all of these transgressions have for example, these transgressions can be done with strong afflictions, medium afflictions, or small afflictions. All of these transgressions has transgression with affliction, without affliction, meaning the affliction becomes the intention to do these transgressions, or without affliction is you are too lazy and you do not do it deliberately, but you just forget or you're too lazy. So without affliction or with affliction. So that is it. These are the vows of Bodhisattva. According to the Chitta Matra tradition, Jesus Prabhupada says this is taught by Maitreya and understood by Asanga. And here, sort of the teachings of Asanga, the essence of the teachings of the Asanga is written by the one whose name is Chandra, so Chandragomi. And then the commentary to that was written by the great Shanta Rakshita, who came to Tibet and who passed away in Tibet, and others. And now I, Taupa Jensen, am offering this commentary. So with that, may the the Buddha Dharma remain long, and may all sentient beings be able to take the bodhicitta and finally gain the enlightenment of Buddha. Good, we managed to do this. I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy because, and I must thank you guys, because many of you keep asking me, what are the vows? What are the what are the do's and don'ts of bodhicitta? Because I always, I must say, I'm guilty of not caring about that, because for me, I thought, oh well, knowing that you shouldn't harm sentient beings and harm dharma and even harm yourself unnecessarily, that is the vow of bodhicitta. And you have not only that, you help sentient beings, help dharma, and maybe So these are the vows of bodhicitta. I thought, well, what are they asking for? But then I read these texts and I really understood that it is important to point things out one by one. So then it becomes more clearer. So I thank all of you, those who have asked me. But again, I stress that you might find a very different sets of vows, or in this, maybe I should say, the different sets of transgressions, coming from the Madhyamika tradition, especially from the sutras like Akashagarbha sutras, so you have to pay attention to that. But whether it is coming from Chittamatra tradition or Madhyamika tradition, both are what we have to practice. Both of these, none of these, should be done actually, if you can help it. None of these actually should be done with afflictions, right? So same goes with the Mahayana Madhyamika tradition too. All the restrictions, we're not supposed to ignore them and go against them. So good. So please make dedication that through this Buddha Dharma remain long, the teaching of bodhicitta remain long, sentient beings, the devotion of beings remain long, the offerings of beings remain long. May the suffering of beings be completely destroyed, and the teachers remain long. What else? Make all the wonderful, beautiful aspirations of bodhicitta. Sonam di tamje zigbanyu tomne nyebe danam pamje de jagana jibalon trubai sibe solen rowan rawar sho rowe dungal menju budde wadam jujungane temba nyet na kurdina chede yurin ne jurchi Chanju sim jorum boje maje banam jebada jebanyamba me bayan khone konto pervar sho. May I, in all my lives, carry far the weight of Buddha Dharma. And when I am not capable to do so, may I always be worried about the longevity of Dharma.